Chapter 236, Troublemaker, Part 1. Originally, Lu Shu intended to puncture the tire and let the air of the tire out. But he realized that there was a mechanic shop beside the tented accommodation area which specialized in repairing cars and fueling. If he had only punctured the tire, it would not achieve the desired outcome. But he didn't want Li Dian and Liang Che to reach Sun Moon Mountain earlier than him. So, he could only carry the motorcycle away. Lu Shu absolutely wanted to praise his own wits. Ever since he became a practitioner, many things actually depended on whether or not he was daring enough. The more daring he was, the better the results. How could ordinary people come up with a plan to carry a motorcycle away? Honestly speaking, Liang Che's motorcycle was about 190 kg. It was nothing to someone of Lu Shu's strength of 4,000 kg. It was just like lifting a child's toy. At this moment, there were still tourists coming over on buses and cars. Whenever Lu Shu passed by their windows, many people would think that their eyes were playing tricks on them as it was already dark. Only when they turned around once more were they stunned. It was incredible. It was common for people to ride motorcycles, but how common was it the other way around? Liang Che stood at the side of Huan, who rode with his mouth open in bewilderment, not knowing what to say. "Damn you, stop right there." His voice drifted through the road along with the wind. It was as helpless as however much one could imagine. He then wasted no time in running forward while dialing for Li Dian on his phone. He couldn't care about the secrecy of their operation anymore. "Hey, Li Dian. We'll run over to Sun Moon Mountain to rendezvous directly. We wouldn't take too long if we give it our all." Li Dian was confused. "Where's your bike?" "Taken away by someone," Liang Che said with gritted teeth. Li Dian was thoroughly confused now. "What?" From Li Dian's distress, plus 399. From Liang Che's distress, plus 999. Until now, Liang Che still didn't understand why the other guy had to carry his motorcycle off. Honestly speaking, he had seen quite a number of metahumans who were secretive and did questionable acts. Wasn't Li Dian one of them? But, just steal it if you want. What's the point of carrying the bike? So you're impressive now that you're strong? He wasn't aware of Lu Shu's presence. Neither did he know of Lu Shu's past with Li Dian. He was even more ignorant of Lu Shu's eavesdropping of their conversation previously. He knew nothing about Lu Shu. If Liang Che saw Lu Shu, he would probably be able to guess half of what happened. The night he escaped from the Heavenly Network was one he would remember for the rest of his life. In his 25 years of life, he had never encountered such a cunning teenage brat. But alas, he was at the disadvantage. Lu Shu was concealed while they were in the open. Lu Shu knew what they were up to while they had no idea what Lu Shu was planning. Liang Che was on the road behind Lu Shu, thinking that he would definitely kill him once he manages to catch up with the guy with his bike. Liang Che was notorious within the gray area of the practitioner community. The feat of escaping from the clutches of the Heavenly Network was enough to glorify him for an entire lifetime. And his identity as a Class D far exceeded the average level of a secret practitioner, so his confidence was extremely high now. But he realized that he had overestimated himself. The other party was clearly carrying a motorcycle, but no matter how hard he tried, Liang Che couldn't catch up. In fact, the gap seemed to be increasing as the other guy was speeding up even more. Liang Che could only stare ahead as the thief gradually left his sight. He stood by the side of the road in disbelief. "How are you running so quickly?" He now had to ponder over one question. Was the other guy more powerful than him? It shouldn't be. He was already at the middle stage of Class D. Wouldn't that guy be a Class C if he was more powerful than him? No. He would concede if a Class C really took his bike. But Liang Che felt that no Class C would be so unreasonable and free to steal a bike. Then there was one more possibility. The other party could be a strength-type metahuman. If this was the case, when he engaged the other party, he had to be mindful of keeping a distance away. After all, his biggest strength was his ability to control flames from a distance. He would definitely be defeated if a strength type could get near him. At this moment, the phone in Liang Che's pocket shrilled. It was Li Dian's voice. "Hey, have you caught up with him?" Liang Che stayed silent momentarily. "Not yet." "What's with you? In this case, we really have to run to Sun Moon Mountain? It's tens of kilometers away." Li Dian was surprised. He always thought that Liang Che was very powerful, at least more powerful than him. And he was also the reason why he had no fear when facing Yuan Liangtua and his company. For ordinary Daoyuan students were no match for Liang Che. Although Class D wasn't considered the peak amongst the practitioners, it definitely wasn't very weak. Liang Che's face turned black. "Do you want to try chasing? Come and meet me first." The other party is likely to be a Class D strength type and he might have come prepared. So, be careful and let's not be overconfident and mess this up. But it really didn't seem like the other party came here for them. After all, amongst all the secret practitioners in practice, they'd never heard of a powerful strength type who came over to Qingzhou. And it didn't seem like it was the doing of the Heavenly Network. They weren't so unscrupulous. But there was nothing wrong with being cautious. Liang Che felt that it was better to be prepared. It was all right to lose just a motorcycle. It would cost merely a few $1,000s to buy another second-hand one. The item within the Sun Moon Mountain, on the other hand, was of utmost importance and could not be lost. It could be said that the entire world was searching for magical equipment in forgotten places. Everyone understood the importance of magical equipment. This sort of equipment could only be chanced upon with luck. If others were to know that Lu Shu not only had the Seal of Lands, but 12 spears as well, he could well be the target of sly schemes every day. Of course, the Heavenly Network was a layer of protection when facing this sort of outlaws. It was just like how criminals feared the police naturally, no matter how tall, fat, skinny, or short the policeman. And even if he didn't possess a gun. After Liang Che and Li Dian met up, Liang Che thought quietly and asked, "Did you encounter any trouble recently? Or piss anyone off?" These words reminded Li Dian of his head-twisting incidents immediately, but he couldn't admit to this. But honestly, he thought that that incident was unrelated to this. Yuan Liangtua and his friends were not Class D and above. He shook his head. "No." "Really? Really? Then that's strange. Where did this troublemaker come from?" Liang Che's suspicion rose, or did we give ourselves away? Li Dian thought about his journey again upon hearing his words. He had only offended another person once, wasn't it just Yuan Liangtua and his few friends? Could it be those few Daoyuan students? That's not possible. Li Dian denied this possibility. Chapter 237, Can't You Be More Reliable? Part 2. Lu Shu carried the motorcycle and dashed all the way. He could remember the route they took to get to their tents. He just had to run along 109, National Road to get to Sun Moon Mountain. Although he didn't know where the said magical item was hidden, he estimated that the area wasn't too big as they had mentioned that they could settle this in one night and rejoin the tour group, before they set off the next day. And Lu Shu felt that with his ability to sense magical energy waves, he should be able to sense whatever that could be sensed by the compass which was mentioned by Li Dian. In the past, Lu Shu always took his ability to sense energy waves for granted and assumed that everyone could do it as well. Only now did he realize that this was actually an ability on its own. And only till now did he understand what Jiang Shui had said. The Heavenly Network sent 2 sensory-type practitioners to Luocheng to investigate the case of the relic. In actual fact, he himself was a sensory type. Lu Shu dashed forward with all his strength. Many drivers witnessed the sight of Lu Shu carrying a motorcycle, but even then, he was as quick as the wind. The weight of the motorcycle was really too light for him. The internet was too advanced now. The citizens of Qingzhou immediately started spreading information amongst their chat groups. Someone carrying a motorcycle is actually running madly along 109 National Road. He is so fast that his face cannot be seen clearly. He's suspected to be a Daoyuan student, but he could even be a practitioner of a high level within the Heavenly Network. The chat groups in Qingzhou aside, people on the Golden Foundation were discussing this incident. In the end, even the Heavenly Network over at Qingzhou was alarmed. Could it be a student from the local Daoyuan class? After some investigation, they realized that this guy wasn't local. The Heavenly Network immediately sent people over to 109 National Road, hoping to stop this guy before he reaches Shijing City. They split into two groups. One group set up a roadblock at the entrance to Shijing City while the other group was responsible for going over to the road to search for clues and traces of Lu Shu. But when they had just started to move, Lu Shu had already arrived at his destination. When he reached the foot of Sun Moon Mountain, he hurled the motorcycle aside. His race was against time now. He had to search this place for clues before Liang Che and Li Dian arrive. If he really couldn't find anything, he had to count on the hard work of Li Dian and Liang Che. Lu Shu would thank them thoroughly for looking for the item for him. As to the possibility of him watching them take the item away right in front of him, Lu Shu expressed that he had never been such a generous person. The hidden item didn't belong to anyone. It belonged to whoever manages to grab hold of it. He scaled the mountain right after dumping the motorcycle. All this while, he stayed cautious and aware of his surroundings for any suspicious occurrences. The current Sun Moon Mountain had become a tourist attraction long ago. The entrance ticket cost around $40 usually. Someone once asked what would become of the poet Li Bai if he lived in the present world. Someone else answered, he probably wouldn't be able to afford the price of entrance tickets when he travels the greatest sights in the world. This was a practical and realistic situation. Everywhere with a decent view was turned into a tourist attraction. Entrance to some places would easily cost tens, $100 or even hundreds of dollars. At this time, it was really impossible to visit scenic places without money. Of course, this did not mean that such unreasonable prices were imposed everywhere. After all, workers were required to maintain the hygiene and cleanliness of these attractions. The maintenance and repair of important architectures also required money. But, since it was classified as a tourist attraction, it should have been renovated. If something was really hidden here, wouldn't it be found during the renovation? No. Li Dian was firm and confident. The item is still here. Lu Shu stood on the ridge between Sun Mountain and Moon Mountain and focused on sensing the changes in magical energy nearby. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and looked towards Sun Mountain. He could feel surges of abnormal energy waves being emitted from the center of the mountain. He ran towards the mountain, towards the source of the emitted magical waves. But when he reached the source of the waves, he realized that it was just an ordinary hill. There was even weed growing and it didn't look like anything out of the ordinary. Lu Shu was curious, so he placed a foot on the ground. With his current strength, he could cause a depression in the ground. Dong. A sound could be heard as he stepped onto the ground. Lu Shu was frozen. Was it empty inside? He retrieved a spear from his seal of lands, and with a few strokes, he dug up a portion of the ground and in time, a metal plate was found deep within the surface. There really was a hidden item. Lu Shu was extremely delighted. The information was reliable. He analyzed the situation around him, making sure that there was no one around before sending his celestial energy into the spear. Without using any effort, he pierced through the plate and went inside. Lu Shu turned on the torchlight on his phone. What came after the metal plate was a long tunnel towards what seemed to be like the interior of the mountain. He walked deeper inside, but just as he took his first steps, sounds of traps could be heard. Phew. 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 A few arrows were shot outwards from within the tunnel. This sort of booby trap was nothing to a practitioner. Even Li Dian would be able to handle these traps with ease. This was the evident difference in generations. Before the era of magical revitalization, just like the difference in technology, people were still using flames. In the current era, people were already inventing bullets. It was a different class altogether. It was a straight route forward. Lu Shu realized that not much thought was put into designing this. The tunnel led straight into the heart of the mountain. There was a stone room in the middle, and on a podium was half of a bronze mirror. This sort of success felt as if whoever designed this didn't really worry about people sneaking in. It seemed as if the booby traps were haphazardly designed, as if this half of a bronze mirror wasn't important. Lu Shu thought about the myth tour guide Wang mentioned earlier. The Tang Emperor bestowed Princess Wensheng with this precious mirror, mentioning that she would see her father in the mirror when she missed him. But when Princess Wensheng reached Chiliang, she didn't see anything upon looking at the mirror. Fuming, she smashed the mirror into 2 pieces. Kiki, this was the main gist of the story. Lu Shu suddenly thought, could it be that this precious mirror could really show a person's desires? But during the era of weak magical energy, it couldn't be used? After all, this half of the bronze mirror was emitting actual magical waves. Lu Shu walked over to pick up the half of the bronze mirror, but it didn't seem like anything special. He sent his celestial energy into the bronze mirror to see if anything out of the ordinary would happen. At that instant, the bronze mirror actually lit up. Yes, it lit up. At that moment, Lu Shu felt like he was facing the sun. It was extremely blinding at that moment. Damn, Lu Shu teared up. His eyes were fine, but the light was really too blinding. How did you ancient equipment users function? There was the head-twisting gourd and now the eye-blinding bronze mirror. Could you research into something useful? Can't you be more reliable? Chapter 238, Revenge. Part 3. After trying this bronze mirror out, Lu Shu suddenly thought of another possibility. There could still be some magical energy during the era of Princess Wensheng. So when she asked someone to bring her the mirror to look at her father, she was blinded upon using the mirror. Then, she threw the precious mirror away. It wasn't that impossible. Lu Shu's eyes were immensely sore. The light previously was really too intense. Luckily for him, his rate of recovery was quick. Lu Shu suddenly thought. Could it be that Li Dian baited him to the bronze mirror on purpose? Of course, this was just him having random thoughts. No matter how useless this magical item might be, as long as it was a magical item, he should just take it first. Liang Che and Li Dian ran towards Sun Moon Mountains. Their speed could not compare to Lu Shu at all, and neither could their physique compare. They ran for tens of kilometers, but even as practitioners, they were rather fatigued. When they just reached the foot of the mountain, Liang Che almost teared up as he looked at his motorcycle thrown at a side. That guy came to the Sun Moon Mountains to search for something, just like us. You must have given it away. Liang Che looked at Li Dian and said seriously. Li Dian didn't take his telling off well. It's obvious that the guy even knew which one is your motorcycle. How could you claim that I gave it away and not you? Nonsense. I have never mentioned the Sun Moon Mountains to anyone. Not a single word. Who else could it be aside from you? Liang Che said suspiciously. You're saying it as if I've mentioned it before. Let me tell you, even though you are strong in terms of ability, I'm a senior in this world. Watch your attitude towards me. Li Dian was rather annoyed. There were good things about the era of magical revitalization. But because of him being relatively weaker to those younger generations, it felt as if he had no backing to his words. At this moment, Lu Shu received some distress points. Without that, he wouldn't even realize that Liang Che and Li Dian were bickering and giving him an increasing amount of distress points. Stop your nonsense. Use the compass to search for the location. Perhaps, that guy is still here and we can trap him here. And he doesn't even have your compass, maybe he can't even find the magical item? Liang Che thought quickly, now wasn't the time to be bickering. Hearing his words, Li Dian immediately whipped out his compass and started searching. Within a few seconds, Li Dian pointed to the center of Sun Mountain, there. When the two of them reached the mountain, they saw a huge hole in the ground. Li Dian and Liang Che were shocked, the other guy actually managed to find it. You go first, Liang Che said coldly. They couldn't tell if the other guy was still inside. Wouldn't they be finished if he was hiding in ambush? Li Dian froze. Why should I go in? Everyone wasn't stupid. They knew that a skilled individual was very likely inside. Wouldn't it be extremely dangerous to meet a strength-type metahuman who's at least a Class D in such a cramped area? Or, you can activate your flames and go in? Li Dian suggested. After saying this, a muffled voice echoed out from inside, don't burn, don't burn. I'll come out on my own. Liang Che's eyes lit up. The other guy was really still inside. He responded coldly, don't come up in such a hurry. Let me ask you, what's down there? Lu Shu muffled his voice to prevent Li Dian from hearing his actual voice. Some people were extremely sensitive to familiar voices. Lu Shu replied in a deeper voice, it's just a piece of broken bronze mirror. As long as you promise to not burn this place, I'll throw it to you guys. Throw it up quickly then. Liang Che said in glee. He'll decide what to do with that guy once he had the magical item. Pa. Half of a bronze mirror was thrown out. Liang Che picked it up immediately. Why is there only one half? Where is the other half? Upon hearing this, Lu Shu realized that the other party wasn't too sure what was down here as well. He replied, there's only half here. Have you not heard the story of Princess Wensheng breaking the precious mirror into two? The other half is definitely in the center of Moon Mountain. Go there and search for it immediately. Liang Che looked at Li Dian doubtfully. Li Dian shook his head. In reality, Lu Shu was very clear that in the entire area of Sun Moon Mountains, there was only magical activity here. The only magical item present would be this half of the bronze mirror. Although the other half of the mirror was somewhere, it definitely couldn't be found here. Liang Che held onto the half of the bronze mirror. You stay inside first. We'll let you out when we're sure that you're not lying to us. Or else, I'll burn you to death immediately. Lu Shu was delighted as he could keep silent in this tunnel. Honestly, he wasn't afraid of Liang Che's fire at all. The celestial cloak was very useful in this aspect. He was just waiting for. Liang Che scanned the half of the bronze mirror in his hand, and Li Dian whispered to him, try it. The two of them harbored feelings of delight, but the moment Liang Che sent his energy into the bronze mirror. Damn. What's this? Damn. I'm blinded, it's a trap. From Liang Che's distress, plus 999. From Li Dian's distress, plus 999. The two practitioners who planned to look for the magical item earlier were now tearing relentlessly. They weren't prepared at all. What's this weird item? Lu Shu came out of the tunnel in delight. He knew how powerful this item was. And Lu Shu suddenly thought of something. Wasn't this blinding bronze mirror very compatible with the head-twisting gourd? He could shout the person's name, and when the person looks over, he could use the mirror to blind him. An extremely strong light ray? But of course, if the other party closes his eyes, then it would be no use. But what's the likelihood of this? Why were the magical equipment of other people so useful while his were so random? Damn it! Liang Che wanted to use his flames to block the exit based on his memory. But the flames extinguished just as they came into contact with Lu Shu's celestial cloak, as if bumping into a nemesis. And on Li Dian's side, a sandstorm suddenly erupted. Sounds could be heard as they bumped against Lu Shu's celestial cloak, but there was barely any effect on Lu Shu's defense. Lu Shu took the bronze mirror and bolted gleefully. Liang Che struggled to crawl up as he pulled Li Dian along. Chase. Let's get to the motorcycle and chase him at once. As they slowly regained their sight, they groped and dashed down the mountain, bumping into numerous objects along the way. It was not just about the bronze mirror now, they were out to get revenge. They were obviously and viciously tricked by that guy. They were fooled thoroughly, but they didn't even know how the other guy looked like. If they didn't catch up to him, they would never have another chance. How could they tolerate this humiliation? And just when they reached the foot of the mountain, Liang Che, who had regained some of his vision, was stunned. Liang Che then looked towards 109, National Road in despair. Damn, he actually carried the motorcycle back. From Li Dian's distress, plus 999. From Liang Che's distress, plus 1000. Chapter 239, Oneself over others? Liang Che and Li Dian watched the rear view of Lu Shu carrying the motorcycle in the distance. This is madness. You don't even have the keys, why are you running with a motorcycle? Liang Che looked back on the 25 years of his life but couldn't think of anyone so unscrupulous. No, actually he bumped into such a person this year when he just escaped from the Heavenly Network's capture. He did encounter someone. But he didn't think much about it. After all, they were too far away. Moreover, Lu Shu was just a normal high school student in his impression, while this person in front of him was a metahuman. He wasn't confident of beating even if he unleashed all his power. But just at that moment, a few black SUVs sped towards Liang Che and Li Dian. Li Dian glanced at his compass and it was vibrating unstably. They were practitioners. The Heavenly Network. Li Dian turned around and wanted to run but was halted by Liang Che. What are you panicking for? They might not be looking for us. This showed that when crucial things really happened, the 25-year-old Liang Che was more composed than the 39-year-old Li Dian. Being able to break away from the clutches of the Heavenly Network, he definitely had something others didn't have. He thought quickly and only after thinking silently for a few seconds did he realize. The two of them came over with their identities concealed, one with the tour group while the other with the group of bikers. Although that guy appeared suddenly along the way, what's key was the fact that the Heavenly Network had no reason to be targeting them. Their identities were hidden all along. Moreover, the other guy had already entered the vision of the Heavenly Network. If the two of them really suddenly turned and bolted, they would arouse suspicion immediately. Who knew if a highly skilled practitioner was amongst the group? Although Li Dian was an old bird with experience, there was a reason for him not amounting to anything even at that age. Who had encountered scammers achieving real success? For someone like Li Dian, it was more petty tricks than wisdom. So even after wandering about and doing unlawful stuff for such a long time, he couldn't even amass enough money to buy 5 magical stones. If it wasn't for the revitalization of magical energy, he would be even worse off. Liang Che and Li Dian pretended as if nothing happened and started walking back. The cars drove beside Liang Che and Li Dian and stopped beside them. Li Dian's hands were, at this point in time, drenched in sweat. The windows were lowered and a fit young man said in a friendly tone, "Brother." Liang Che turned and smiled, "Hey, what's up? Did you guys see someone carrying a motorcycle?" The young man smiled as he asked. "Damn." Liang Che shuddered. He immediately understood why this personnel from the Heavenly Network appeared. They were alarmed by the guy with the motorcycle. They must have been alerted when numerous people saw that guy previously. But it was not the time to think about this. Liang Che composed himself and smiled. "Nope, why would there be someone carrying a motorcycle? How heavy is a motorcycle?" Liang Che thought that his response was perfect. Commoners would wonder how someone could carry a motorcycle if they heard about this. His act was thorough enough, covering even the small details. "Thanks," the young man responded with a grin before turning back to the driver. "Let's move forward and continue with the search." "Yes." The group of cars then set off again, and Liang Che and Li Dian could finally relax. Damn, if they found out who was behind all this trouble, they had to chase and kill him no matter what. It was fine if he just stole their target, but he even brought the Heavenly Network here. But just then, a young man beside one of the drivers suddenly felt something amiss. There's nothing in the vicinity. No houses, no shops. What are those two guys doing here? The driver pondered for a moment before replying, could it be some villagers here? That can't be. They aren't even dressed like shepherds. The young man held up his walkie-talkie, turn back. Everyone take note, be prepared to engage anytime. Liang Che and Li Dian were still wondering how to track the guy who ruined their plans when they noticed the three black SUVs turning around. The young man who spoke to them just now stuck his head out and shouted, "Bro, I still want to find out the situation from you." Li Dian was suspicious. What situation? Damn the situation. Liang Che turned pale from shock. He had gone against the Heavenly Network too many times, and at this sort of situations, he knew the Heavenly Network didn't have anyone so silly. Run. Liang Che wished that Lu Shu was right in front of him, so he could execute his mad revenge. He had escaped from the Heavenly Network after much difficulty, but now, he had to face these guys again. In reality, Liang Che was clear that these men of the Heavenly Network, handpicked from the military, were much tougher to deal with than those secret practitioners he had been dealing with all this while. Apart from having chemistry and being familiar with each other, even those inexperienced practitioners from this group had abilities that were hard to deal with. But even before he ran for 10 meters, Liang Che felt as if the natural elements of the world were changing drastically. He felt uncomfortable. There was actually someone within this group who was a meta-practitioner, an awakened practitioner. The grass beneath him suddenly grew rapidly and curled themselves around Li Dian and his feet, much like ropes. Li Dian fell to the floor almost immediately afterward. Liang Che then used his skills softly. In an instant, numerous flaming birds flew out of his body, their extreme temperature ripping the grass apart. Following that, they surged towards those members of the Heavenly Network. Liang Che today wasn't someone to be trifled with. Of course, when up against a group, Liang Che didn't expect his flame birds to do significant damage. It was purely used as a tool to delay time. He ran off without turning his head, while Li Dian shouted behind him, "Save me." But Liang Che didn't plan on saving him at all. At this point, he had trouble even saving himself. Go have fun with the Heavenly Network. Within this half a year, had Liang Che displayed signs of weakness or faltered, he would have been caught by the Heavenly Network. It was impossible for Liang Che to sacrifice himself to save someone else. Wait, something was not right. Li Dian was disappointed as he witnessed this sight. Darn you. He then turned around to the Heavenly Network and shouted, "He's Liang Che. One of the fugitives that escaped from you Heavenly Network. He's a Class D fire manipulator." Chapter 240, 240, Do not be impulsive. Upon hearing the name of Liang Che, information about this person resurfaced within the mind of the young leader from the Heavenly Network. It wasn't because he had a good memory or because the Heavenly Network had a short wanted list. In fact, the Heavenly Network's wanted list of metahumans was very long, but most of them had already been caught. As for those who were still on the run out there weren't many left. Most people were threading in the gray area and were not yet on the Heavenly Network's wanted list. In fact, many metahumans had considered sneaking into Southeast Asia. The existence of the local Heavenly Network was a huge pressure to them. If they could sneak into Southeast Asia, they could definitely make a name for themselves with their abilities. Another important fact was that organizations such as the Heavenly Network, a strict and powerful organization, was among the few in this world. Liang Che heard Li Dian scream and became furious. What an unreliable man. He was hoping for a more decent secret organization, but it seemed rather hopeless. The good people had all been taken in by the Heavenly Network. Of course, there were still several leaders that managed to recruit metahumans, but Liang Che couldn't bring himself to trust them, fearing that he might be backstabbed anytime. He kept sending out flaming birds that flew towards the Heavenly Network under the cover of the tall grass. Along the trail of these flaming birds, the originally vibrant greeneries had turned yellow and set aflame. Another group of flaming birds was flying around in all directions. On the other hand, the Heavenly Network was alerted and the young leader frowned. He's planning to burn the entire field. The information regarding the wanted list stated that during Liang Che's escape, he burned down an entire mall and even killed 3 security personnel. As such, they didn't doubt the ability of Liang Che to set an entire field aflame. Furthermore, in the face of a fire-type metahuman, the plant type from the team was at a disadvantage. Of course, he could control the plants to suck up underground water to deal with the fire, but that was too inefficient. It would be similar to using 10 points of effort to accomplish 1 point worth of defense while the other party's 10 points of effort were dishing out 12 points of damage. When the flaming birds attacked, Li Dian quickly covered his entire self with his silk cloth, which seemed to protect him from the flaming birds, no matter the intensity of the heat. The other members from the Heavenly Network ignored him as they knew the extent of this guy's abilities. He would never escape for long. But luckily for Liang Che, there wasn't any Class C and above practitioners in this group of Heavenly Network members. From previous investigations, Liang Che knew that there weren't any Class B Heavenly Kings in Qingzhou and there was only one Class C. If the Class C was present, his flying sword would have pierced him instantly. But this was also expected. The Heavenly Network's objective was to capture a maniac carrying a motorbike, and that wouldn't require the power of a Class C expert. Speaking of which, where did this maniac go? Huh? Catching the Heavenly Network's attention and making me the scapegoat? On the other hand, Lu Shu had no idea about the events that took place. But looking at the distress points from Liang Che and Li Dian, he was delighted. This is the life. Watching his distress points increase from 70k to 110k within a day, Lu Shu couldn't help but let out a grin. At the fight, Liang Che was making use of all his antics. He was adept at causing distractions by destroying surrounding stuff. An organization like the Heavenly Network had such a mindset: the larger objective is always the priority. When the fire on the field began to spread, the Heavenly Network could only send out part of their team to chase after Liang Che. The plant-type metahuman had to use an inefficient method to deal with the fire, while the rest had to contact the firefighting department as soon as possible. In the end, 5 were sent after Liang Che while 5 stayed behind, 1 to control the fire, 1 to look after Li Dian, and 3 to contact the relevant authorities and to deal with emergencies. After all, these 2 people might have other comrades lurking around. Out of desperation, Liang Che escaped into the woods. He was determined to escape. To him, what was the point in awakening if he got locked up? The young leader behind suddenly stopped. "Cover me." Another urged, "Captain, there's no need to risk your future." The captain replied in all seriousness, "We cannot leave such a ruthless fugitive at large. Who knows how many more innocent civilians he would harm? If that happened, would everyone be able to bear the guilt for life?" No arguments. Before Liang Che could leave a distance between them, he was shocked at the sight that greeted him when he turned back. The young leader had stopped while the rest were covering him. He knew that all Class D experts in the Heavenly Network had a last resort to send a flying sword with extraordinary speed and power, which even himself would not survive. Although Liang Che craved for freedom, he never thought about whether his reasons were right or wrong. But right now, he wasn't willing to risk his life for freedom. "Stop." Liang Che turned around and shouted, "Please do not be impulsive. I'll come back." In his mind, he was recalling all the incidents that took place that night. All these were because of that maniac. From Liang Che's distress, plus 999. The Heavenly Network's captain had a slight grin on his face when he saw Liang Che surrendering. Only when Liang Che was close enough to see his expression, he realized that the other party had planned this scheme after realizing that they could not catch up to him. F***CK. But to be honest, Liang Che couldn't be sure if these crazy bastards from the Heavenly Network would use their last resort to kill him. The captain placed a special handcuff on him and brought him back to the vehicles. At this point in time, The fire had stopped spreading, but the plant-type metahuman had his energy depleted and was extremely pale. Someone immediately brought magical stones to him. Looking at Li Dian and Liang Che standing next to the SUV, a successful capture was the greatest news to the captain. But he couldn't understand one thing: why did you carry a motorbike while running? From Li Dian's distress, plus 1,000. From Liang Che's distress, plus 1,000.
What does it mean to be happy? 'Cause it looks like we all don't know. Glass half full or empty, man, we just putting on a show. Try to look to the heavens.